Welcome back to Newsday. Thanks for staying with us. For Nigeria to achieve greatness, ethnic bigotry and disunity must be avoided. The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, gave this advice in Ibadan when he paid a courtesy visit to the Executive Council chambers, where he was received by Governor Seyi Makinde, the former Lagos State governor, who sought for support as he seeks to occupy the nation's highest political office, promised to serve with honesty and integrity. Our correspondent Olutayo Famous Call has more.
It's the arrival of the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, and his team to the office of the Oyo State governor. And it was straight to the Executive Council chambers, where he spoke about the purpose of his visit.
My team to be here today. It's a campaign day of different nature for my aspiration to become the elected president of Federal Republic of Nigeria. That cannot occur in a vacuum. I'm aspiring to be the president of a united, one country, Nigeria. And for that sake, political divide and separation must be clearly out of our way.
The former Lagos governor lamented the economic situation across the country, stating that it had become expedient to unite the nation, irrespective of political affiliation.
And equally, to be of service to our nation, it's about time we look at politics from different prisms and remove all antagonistic behaviors from the surface of it. Constitutional democracy allows for that. I am grateful for your mode of acceptance, for the courtesy call. And I believe if you look around, you can easily see the difference between all of us that remain in the race. I believe I am a better, more qualified and competent candidate to the best of them all. And I'm here equally to solicit your worthy endorsement.
Host Governor Seyi Makinde described the agitation by the Integrity Group as a call for justice and unity. Makinde says the time was ripe for Nigerians to make decisions in national interest.
Players will come and go, but our country will remain. Yes, our country will remain. So, we, the G5 and the Integrity Group, were saying that, look, if we have to choose between the unity of this country, we have to evolve the system such that there's inclusivity, there's fairness, there's justice, there's equity in how we run this country. Just like I mentioned, different political parties, different players, but if the country does not survive, then we don't have, the political parties will fade away. There have been political parties, from pre-independence, So I will say that I wish you well. It's only a couple of few more days to go, about 9 days. But one thing I want you to take away from this visit today is the fact that we will vote for equity, for fairness, for justice, and
The visit by the APC presidential team to Oyo State is the culmination of campaign activities in the southwest region. Olutayo Famous Call, Arise News, Ibadan.
All right, we're now being joined by Deputy Spokesperson of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Hannatu Musawa, to discuss the state of the race as it concerns the APC presidential candidate, the crisis of confidence between the party leader, President Muhammadu Buhari, and APC governors over the redesigned Naira, and the party's game plan as campaigns wind down. It's great to have you on Newsday. Welcome to the program. Now, I'll just get straight into it. The past few weeks seem to have exposed disunity and division within the ruling party. Now, with some of the statements that were made in Governor El-Rufai's broadcast yesterday, alluding to the fact that there's some individuals who lost out at presidential and gubernatorial posts at the primary elections who are now working against the party, do you feel that the power of incumbency that you're supposed to enjoy as a ruling party is going to work against you in the upcoming polls?
Thank you very much, Ms. Cynthia and Ms. Vimbai, for having me on the show this afternoon. I've just got half a voice, so I hope you'll be able to hear me communicate. No, I don't think, when you say the power of incumbency, of course, we're the ruling party, but as a campaign, never was that really something that we wanted to use to our advantage. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Kashim Shettima came out with a campaign that was a standalone on its own. Not once did we want to rely on government. And as we do our campaign, as we go into the election in the next 8 days, we are standing on our mandate as a campaign and not in the least bit were we looking at using the instruments of power to our advantage in this election. And because of that, I think we are still in a good position to becoming victorious in the next 8 days of the election.
Thank you so much, Hannatu, especially for the fact that you have half a voice in your own words. We could hear you loud and clear. But we did have an analyst here, Mr. Dayo Shibowale, and he basically called the gesture made by Governor El-Rufai quite bold, saying that most APC governors might be disgruntled by this Naira redesign policy. And one of the allegations made by the governor is that this is it's also a plot for an interim government. Now, seeing that the president has set up a transition committee, this is a bit of a weighty allegation, and I'd just like to know your take on his perception of the situation, how you think that allegation might affect your chances.
Well, I don't think, I don't know what information Governor El-Rufai has in his own capacity as one of the members of the ruling party and as a governor. But I don't think, you see, let me make it clear as to why you find that a lot of the people within our party seem sort of disgruntled with this policy. You find that the media and the opposition keep on pushing this narrative that the reason why the ruling party or the reason why the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Alhaji Kashim Shettima campaign are having a problem with this policy, or rather the very, very bad implementation of it, is because it stops vote buying. But nobody is actually interested in vote buying. We have done a campaign that we believe was successful and will be successful, devoid of vote buying, and we're happy that any instrument that is going to be brought into play that will stop vote buying, because what we want is a success that will be satisfactory to Nigerians. We don't want a situation where anybody has the opportunity to vote buy in a way that will sort of make the election not look credible. So we're not interested in vote buying. Why you see a lot of the people from the APC very disgruntled or very upset with the bad implementation of this policy is because this is a policy of the current government, and I wouldn't even say it's a complete policy of the current government, because I remember when the CBN governor came out with this policy, I remember that the finance minister came out and said that not once was she she didn't even know about the policy until it was announced. Granted, it is what the president sort of wanted, and he has been the one that has sort of been supporting whatever policy it is that was sold to him by the CBN governor or whoever. However, our problem really is the fact that we have our own policy as a campaign, which is expressed in our action plan, and nowhere in our action plan do you see this specific policy. But what will happen in the psyche of Nigerians, especially with what people are going through, the hardships that people are going through because of the very bad implementation of this policy, is that people are going to look at it and say, oh, this is part of the design of the ruling party. And then it's going to affect us as a campaign, as a party, because people will feel that we do not have the sort of empathy that is required as leaders to come in and take over leadership, because we are bringing policies that are really completely bastardizing everybody's situation in their own just little personal capacities. So that is where you find that people from the campaign, from my party, are very sort of disillusioned with the way the whole implementation has gone. And then you have people like Governor Nasru El-Rufai and Governor Ganduje that are very expressive as people anyway, that are coming out to speak their minds. And I don't blame them. And what I would want Nigerians to really take into effect is that, as bad as the implementation of this policy has been, it is only our party that is standing together with the Nigerian people, and that are, trying to look at the plight that the Nigerian people are going through. But it doesn't matter for the other political players in the opposition, because they look at it as an advantage, because they are happy that any negative effect of the bad implementation is going to be connected with our campaign. So they don't mind that Nigerians are dying. And it is only Bola Ahmed Tinubu, out of all the candidates, and maybe the exception of one other candidate, I think in AYP, that came out to stand with the Nigerian public. It is very, very unfortunate, but it doesn't really matter. We have 8 days to go to this election. I do hope that there will be more dialogue between all the players, including the president, in a way that will sort of ease some of the difficulties that Nigerians are going through, and in a way that will also be able to hold the sanctity of the elections in the way that the president is trying to do.
Right. Now, Hannatu, I'm glad that earlier you alluded to the narrative that, you feel the media and the opposition have created around your candidate and around the APC's presidential campaign. And I'm curious as to whether you would have a rethink as an organization as to Bola Ahmed Tinubu's strategy to rather avoid debating and engaging with, with public audiences, and instead choose to have curated seminars and organized groups that he spoke to. Do you think that you would have possibly been in greater control of your narrative if Bola Ahmed Tinubu had been more available to the media to speak for himself?
Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with our narrative. You know, we have a message, we have our action plan, and that is going forward. We are effectively and very successfully communicating that to the people at the grassroots. And I don't see anything wrong with the narrative. In terms of whether there's going to be a debate or whatever, in 8 days, I don't know how practical that is. But we do not regret all the decisions that we have made as a campaign. I have, in past interviews, I have been the one that has sort of divulged the reason why we as a campaign didn't want Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to go into some of these debates, especially on platforms or with individuals that we felt were rather biased. But despite that, we've still been able to engage with the grassroots in a way that I don't think any other candidate has been able to do. We don't regret the way that our campaign is going. The fact that this has been a little hitch, and I think we would admit this has been a hitch not only for the Nigerians, but specifically for the ruling party. But that is not going to stop anything, and we are confident of victory, and we are very, very proud of the way that we've run our campaign, and we're very proud of our principal, and we stand by him, and we also stand by the president. You know, we stand by the fact that Nigeria has a president like Muhammadu Buhari that is not allowing his sentiment for being a party member stop him protect his oath of office, which is to stand for Nigeria. But despite that, I do feel that there are facts that maybe the president has been ill-advised as to how the implementation of this very good policy is going. And especially with the flouting of contempt of court with the Supreme Court, I think the president was not advised accordingly, but it's not going to stop anything on our side.
Well, thank you, Hannatu. Your optimism is admirable. But I'm just wondering, you mentioned earlier about how the policies don't necessarily match, you know, how you have your own campaign policy and then this Naira redesign did not necessarily line up. If the electorate who will decide if everything goes as planned, if it's going to be a free, fair, and credible election, and the electorate is not going to distinguish between what's in your policy and what's on the president's agenda, and they link everything, they basically look at what APC is as a party, and most people would say that the cracks in your party are quite apparent, and then they don't want something similar for the next 4 or 8 years, and that actually costs you the election. What happens next?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, this has really had a detrimental effect on our election, on our campaign, especially at the very last leg of the campaign. But I do think that the APC has done an incredible job up until now of sort of sending or selling Nigerians their vision. I've always said that this is a campaign that has had to go very local. So through the candidates and through opinion leaders in all the communities, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been able to communicate his vision and his mission to the very grassroots. And I think we've done a very good job up until now, and thank God that we were able to put in that work beforehand. So even though this has been sort of a glitch, I don't think it's enough in the next 8 days to completely truncate the sort of work that APC has done in the last many months to sort of build the foundation of what is going to effectively be success in the next 8 days. We have, I keep on saying, 93.4 million registered voters all over Nigeria, and even though all these 93 plus million voters are being really affected detrimentally by the bad implementation of this policy, I think through the opinion leaders and through the people contesting and the governors that we have on ground, I think we'll be able to hold our ground and deliver the victory in the way Section 134 requires.
Now, it's clear that all right, got you. Now, it's clear that the APC itself seems to have reached a watershed moment. And earlier you did make reference to Governor Ganduje, who's also been extremely vocal during this period. And the tone of his rhetoric is that the president is attempting to destroy the APC as a party. Now, you know, whether or not that has merit is a different issue, but I'm curious as to what the future of the APC looks like after 8 days, after this presidential election is over, because undoubtedly the APC will not look the same way. There are inevitable changes coming. What does that look like?
Well, first of all, I have to say that the president is not trying to destroy the APC. The president is a man of virtue and honor. He swore an oath to the country, and he is doing what he feels is in the best interest of all Nigerians, not just his party, and I think we have to give him kudos for that. Now, whether the advice that he's been given is one that is detrimental to not only the party, to Nigeria, that's another conversation to be had. But I just want to make that point that President Muhammadu Buhari is in no way trying to destroy the party, and we don't look at it in that way at all. We appreciate the fact that he has the intelligence enough to be able to separate his role as a party member and also his role as a president, and we appreciate him for that. However, yes, the APC is going through somewhat of a challenge, and because this specific policy does not work for the benefit of Nigeria. The policy in and of itself is a very good policy for economic reasons, for security reasons, and other reasons. It's a very, very good policy. So we support the policy. The idea of the policy is the implementation of it that we have a problem with. And definitely, if we are successful at the election, God willing, we will be, and I believe and very confident that we will be, there would have to be a conversation that APC is going to have internally to see how we can reinforce our position, because we do believe that despite the good intention of the president, there are saboteurs in the system. And these are saboteurs in the system that are benefiting from an APC government, but are giving the president advice that is very detrimental to APC. So definitely we're going to have a conversation as to how this happened and how we can be able to sort of protect APC and our party going forward in the future.
Thank you, Hannatu. Now, one thing that has been noticed is sometimes your candidate tends to contradict himself, for lack of a better word at this time. For instance, when it came to the Naira redesign, he said it was a policy that was aimed to frustrate his aspirations to become president. And then later on, he was seen asking, Nigerians to basically remain calm. And then he also talked about making Nigeria just like Lagos. And then in an opinion piece, he stated that he can't necessarily make Nigeria like Lagos based on complexities. So he seems to contradict himself at various times. Just wondering how you think that comes across to the electorate, and then, spokespersons like yourself have to come and smooth things over or help us understand what the intention was.
I disagree that he contradicts himself. I think those examples that you gave, a lot of them were sort of taken out of context. Yes, of course, like I said earlier on, the policy of the Naira redesign, we agree with that. In essence, I think it is a good policy for the economic reasons, for security reasons, and also if it is something that is bought to stop vote buying, it's something that we buy into, we want. Because Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu wants a clean victory, devoid of any suspicion that he won because he bought votes. So it was something that we completely agreed with. But then, the implementation of it and the way it has affected Nigerians detrimentally, I think it was a need for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to come out and speak against it. And if we're talking about contradiction, it's actually, especially on this redesign, it's actually the PDP candidate that has been the one that has contradicted himself. Initially, when the policy came out, he was against the policy. Then when he saw that the policy was detrimental to the image of our campaign, because we are tied with the government that has done the bad implementation of this policy, it's something that he's hailing, to the point that they've even got states to go in to support the position of the present government that the policy should not be changed, and the implementation of it is fine. So if we're really talking about contradiction, I think that is where you find the great contradiction. But as far as I'm concerned, I go for a lot of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's campaigns, and for his rallies and his town halls, and I hear almost every single speech that he makes. In fact, I write them down, I go through them, I'm able to interrogate them, and you find that he's very consistent in what he says. However, when you take things out of context, you take little conversations out of this one and that one, there's a likelihood that it could be interpreted in a way that doesn't present the correct context. But yeah, Asiwaju is consistent, and that consistency is the message that we are giving to the very, very grassroots, who are the majority of the voters, and they're the ones going to return us victorious at the end of the day.
All right, Hannatu Musawa, the Deputy Spokesperson of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, thank you so much for the eloquence that you brought to this conversation today.